Hello everybody, it's Brian with MTMMix.com, and today we're going to be going over something that I am absolutely confused why I haven't covered yet, and that is going to be how to mix hip-hop drums. Why I haven't posted it yet, I don't know, but let's get right to it. Alright, so we got this session up over here. I soloed out the drums for now, just for the sake of the example. This is a full song, but I'm just going to be showing you guys the drums for this until I play it out at the end. But essentially, I soloed out all my drums. I have my cymbal, my hard hi-hat, open hi-hat, and then a fast sort of trap kind of hi-hat, my snare kick, and then I'm going to include the bass in this example as well. The first thing that I like to do is I focus on my kick and my bass, so I'm going to mute these guys just so that it is just the kick and the bass going through. The first thing that I did, and I will always do, is I'll do sidechain compression on the bass. This way, whenever your kick drum hits, your bass volume is going to duck down, it's going to compress and make room for that kick drum. Since they're two low-end instruments, they're competing for the same space, so whenever you want your kick drum to cut through the mix, you gotta sort of make room for it by getting rid of some of those bass frequencies that are audible at the moment. In order to do this, I use the stock Pro Tools compressor plugin. You could set sidechain input by going to this key and choosing the bus you want the input to be at. So once you set that, you want to turn sidechain on by clicking this key over here. And then from there, you want to send your kick drum to this input, whatever you chose here. What this does is it tells the compressor to remain off until signal is sent to this bus. In this case, I'm using bus 3. So I go to my kick track and I create a send for bus 3. I have it all the way up at 0. So what this is doing, every time my kick drum hits, it will send a complete signal to bus 3, which is the input for the sidechain on this compressor/limiter plugin. So this is only going to play when my kick drum hits. And you could see it sort of act out if I just hit play. So you can see that I messed around with the settings a little bit. I'm not going to touch this gain knob just because that's going to bring frequencies back in that I don't want. So I'm going to keep that zeroed out. I adjusted the threshold, so I'm getting around, maybe around -6, -12 at the most, of a sort of a quick hit. You notice that I adjusted the attack and release to taste. I didn't touch a ratio. These are going to be things that you kind of want to experiment with, especially the attack and the release. So by doing that, that creates a sense of space for that kick drum to hit. It's pretty audible. The next thing that you want to do is you want to create some more punch in this kick drum. It's going to be different for every mix that you do, but this kick drum's coming off pretty soft, so what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to bring up this Pro Q2 EQ. You could do this with any EQ, but I'm choosing to do this just because it visualizes the waveform and makes it a little easier. So now I'm gonna sweep through these frequencies as the kick drum is playing, and I'm gonna find out which frequencies are, I guess you could call it the attack end of the kick drum. What's making it kind of punch through the mix. So it sounds like right about there is the attack end of the kick drum. I'm definitely going to bring that gain down a little bit so that way it's not as dramatic. And the cool thing about Pro Q2 is it shows you the harmonic intervals or harmonic octaves for these frequencies. So you could add harmonic boosts as well. You could see between these two grid lines, it's about maybe a third of the way there. So you want to dial in the Q and make it so that way the next set of grid lines, it's also around a third of the way there, and you could even do the same for the next set. I like to gradually get less and less each time. Again, this is sometimes unnoticeable. I think it makes a pretty good difference and delivers a little more punch than you previously had. So the next thing you're going to want to do is get the initial levels for all of your other drums. I already did. I'm going to play out this drum beat for you right now just because I haven't yet, so you could take a listen. So you could tell that it's sort of grungy sounding. It has a lot of reverb on that snare and the hi-hats, and it just creates a lot of room and a lot of width for the drum break. So the next thing that you're going to want to do is, I like to add this reverb, just a general reverb for a majority of the drums. Anything that it's supposed to be cutting through, I don't like putting reverb on. So in this case, the kick drum and this fast hi-hat. I also have this cymbal, just because the cymbal already naturally had reverb. The sample that the producer used, already had reverb. So I use the deverb. It comes stock with Pro Tools, and I just set it on the room setting. It's a large room, and what I did is I put it on an auxiliary bus. The input for that bus is 5 and 6, and then I used my send effects to dial in the amount of reverb for each instrument. So you could tell right here, I'll start with this, the send effect for the snare drum down, so it'll be the dry snare, and I'll dial in some reverb. And then I did the same thing for the hi-hats as well, besides the fast hi-hat. So the next thing that you want to do to sort of control everything is create a drum bus. So you could have all your drums going to this particular bus. In this case, I'm going to set the input to bus 11 and 12, and then select all of my drums, hold shift and option, and select bus 11, 12 as the output. That'll set the output for every one of these tracks to 11 and 12. Then the input is 11 and 12 on this drum bus. What this will do is it'll allow us to manipulate all of the drums at the same time on one single auxiliary track. So you can see we are clipping. So instead of turning this fader down on the auxiliary bus, let's select all of our drums, Command G to create a group, and let's turn these faders down so we're not clipping. So there you have that. The next thing you want to do is create a little more punch on the drums overall. In order to do that, we could do something called parallel compression. I just made a video about this, so I'm not going to go too in depth. What I do here is I use the H comp from Waves. They actually, for the sake of this example, I'm just going to go to they have a preset parallel compression. If you want to look more into parallel compression, definitely check out my video that I just put out. It's definitely insightful to this category, but it's too long to explain all together for this video, so I'll keep it short. So you're going to set up your compressor, whatever one you're using, for the settings you would use for parallel compression to let those transients hit. You would create an input on this bus. I'm going to use 13 and 14. And what you're going to do is you're going to send your output, or a send signal, from your drum bus to this parallel compression track. And you're going to dial this fader up until you get a proper amount of punchiness in the mix. So take a listen. So there you have that. It creates a nice amount of attack and grit and kind of punchiness that we were looking for, and it does a really good job of doing that. So generally this is where I would stop on my drums. I would be a little more attention given on a lot of the instruments. For example, right here, I boosted a lot of the low end on the snare. The snare sounded very thin prior to that, but then again, I would also go into, say, for example, these open hi-hats and perhaps maybe boost a little bit of the high end, get rid of some of the lows. So you could actually see that was a little piercing right there. I actually didn't notice that until now, so it's always a good idea to go through some of these EQ settings on every instrument that you have throughout your mix to make sure that nothing is sneaking past your ear. Some people might call it cheating by using the graphics, but in reality it does help you notice things, especially when your ears are getting tired. So that's really it for the drums, guys. This is all I would usually do as far as the drums goes. And then besides any panning and things along those lines, that would come a little later down the mix when I'm creating some more space for other instruments or vocals. So if you have any question, guys, leave them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer. And until next time, guys, I'll talk to you soon.
I'm a thief, I just took it, I'm a geek, I don't look it. Binge all day, anime, binge all night, comic booking, not your ordinary nerd. That's your girl, why she looking? Stepped away with your babe, came back out, collar crooked, mama cooking in the kitchen, papa booked it, left an infant, gotta push it, that's the mission. Why you looking so suspicious? You got something up your sleeve, I got something that you